Good morning and welcome to Kirkstone, and here we are. Bit of an unusual video this one, because essentially what we have done is change the configuration of our main work area. So what we have, very simply, is moved the tray, and we'll give a quick overview of the tray in a minute, and also the camera angle, so that the field of view is actually the working area. So having just, for example, taken some leaf cuttings of this Dromiscus, then everything should more or less stay in view. So at present we're working on these Haworthias and a couple of other plants from our good friend Gabor Seifert, trading his New Deal in Hungary. And we also have an arrival from Gabor. But what we are actually concentrating on now, because we get asked so many times, is about the potting mix. So what is the substrate, the normal substrate, and of course there are always exceptions for special plants. What is the normal substrate that we use for growing such fantastic plants as these Haworthias, which have just arrived from Hungary? Well, let us look at the process. The first thing we do is we have a receptacle into which we put things, in this case a bucket. Next thing we need is a container which will hold a certain amount of stuff. And it doesn't matter what the container is. I'm using this small crisp packet thing here. The important thing is we're getting the same amount. So the first constituent of the potting mix is always the same. It's a proprietary compost, peat-based compost. And yes, some people will turn their noses up at peat, but at the end of the day, it's available, it's cheap, and it does, as they say, work for me. So I'm filling this container up with compost, and I'm emptying this bag because I've got a new bag ready to use. So we have there one container of peat and an empty compost bag. Okay, so that's the first constituent, humus, something to hold the water. So that's part one. So that goes into the bucket. The second constituent is a fine horticultural gravel. So this is the same kind of gravel, roughly, that you would put in aquariums, but this hasn't been washed, it isn't quite to the same standard. This is horticultural grit, it's sold as. So between a minimum of 2 and a maximum of 4 millimeter size. Okay, so that's the second constituent. The third constituent is horticultural sand. So this is a large, coarse sand that the water flows through very easily. But it's important that you use horticultural sand because the grains are all roughly the same size. The particle size is more uniform and constant. There are no little tiny dusty bits in this, which is what you'll find in builder sand, which looks very similar but can set solid like concrete, and clearly that's no good for roots. So that's the third constituent. Okay, that's going in. And the fourth constituent is this much larger grit. Now this particle size goes from 5 millimeters all the way up to about 9-10 millimeters in size. Okay, so that's part 4, and that's why I call it 25 25 25 25 mix. It's 25% coarse sand, horticultural sand, 25% smaller grit particles, 25% larger grit particles, and finally it is 25% humus. And then we'll give that a massive stir. And what we're left with very quickly is a very open, very gritty. Now it doesn't look as if there's only 25% humus in there, it looks as if there's a lot more. But you saw what went into the mix: 25% humus, 25% sand, and 50% in total of grit of different sizes. And that is incredibly free draining, but also has enough organic content to actually hold the moisture just long enough for those fine hair roots to actually get purchased. Isn't that lovely? Wouldn't you like to live in that and stick your roots into that if you were a plant? I'm sure you would. So anyway, back to the overall setup. So we now have a much tidier working area. So our potting material would go there, and the next thing we need to locate, I'll put it somewhere, I don't know where, is the potting pan. And the potting pan is what we actually put the plant into. So when we're potting up, we put a pot here like this, put the plant in, and if you look at any of the Kirkstone videos, you'll see something very, very similar. So a much tidier working area, a brush to brush dust off the plants and also to clean the working area, and one hygienic potting up area which is kept clean at all times. And all the tools, scissors, spoons, are kept out of the way. Okay, and I hope that helps. Work area, potting area, all sorted out.